Hello, everyone. My name is Nick. Over the years, I have built and sold another business. I had a massive taxable event the year that I sold a business, and in anticipation of that, I really didn't want to lose like 30% of the gains that I had from selling another business. I was already buying short-term rentals at the time, and I looked at on paper what I was going to take away as soon as I sold that business and what I was going to pay to the IRS, and I was like, I need to triple down on this. I've been saving money every single year. And I did that in 2023 was when I sold that business. And prior to that, I had been documenting what I'd been doing along my journey. To this date, I own 7 short-term rentals, and I have 20 other short-term rentals that I own with partners. So I bought homes on my own, I bought homes with other people, and there are basically 3 tenets that are super important to understand in this game. If you are a high-income earner and you are sick and tired of your massive tax bills, first off, let's understand the tax scenario. Second, let's figure out where are those ideal markets? What is the right property in the right market? How do you optimize for cash flow? And then my third and favorite thing, depending upon how much time we have, is somebody mentioned creative financing. You were actually looking to do like a refi with creative financing, correct? I think that, sorry, I just confused you guys. Creative financing, how do you, instead of put 20, 25% down, can you put 10% down? Can you do seller financing where you put an even lower amount down? Can you do subject to, which is called a non-qualified loan assumption? So let's start with the thesis. So this is most everybody in this room, right? I would imagine you guys are in some range of either 400K a year, 600K a year, $1 million plus. Well, I hope you guys like my graphics too, and I'll fly through this really quickly. So you start the year recognizing, oh, all this income on paper, especially if you guys run your own businesses, whether you pay taxes quarterly or if you're W-2 and they're withheld. At the end of the year, you just end up with a much smaller bag of money because you're obviously being taxed. So if you're in that 400K per year range, this is typically what your tax bill looks like at the end of the year. 600, this is the reduction down, $1 million plus. Everything over 500 something grand is taxed at 37%. So in this scenario, somebody is typically losing close to 30% of their money. So instead of going through this scenario, I help clients literally have this type of transformation where they recognize it is very, very hard for me to just continue working harder, stress myself, still have very limited time, and try and get my income to go up maybe 20, 30% every single year. What would be an easier strategy is just finding a way to not have it go down as a product of paying your tax bills. So what I help people with specifically is get off what we refer to the wealthy hamster wheel, which I think most of you guys are already on. We have Uncle Warren, #1 investor of our time. #1 rule, don't lose money. #2, scene rule #1. I gave you guys this graphic. So I will start with what do you do to actually get an Airbnb, take the bonus depreciation, qualify for it. We'll close the loop on that first, and then we'll move into phase 2, which is once you understand this, now you're trying to just figure out what's the right market, where do I buy a property, and then we'll dovetail into other topics from there. Everybody on the same page. So first we're going to solve for what's the ideal outcome, how do we get there in terms of tax savings, and then what does an actual good property look like, how do you underwrite it? So my team, we this year will probably end up closing on 250 homes for other clients. So anywhere from like 5 to 25 deals per month. Right now I think we have like 12 deals under contract that are scheduled to close in the next 1, 2, or 3 weeks. We'll get another 5 to 10. So before we start talking about what does an ideal deal look like, there's a really good example. Can everybody see this? Is this too small? Yeah, you want me to blow it up? All good. So on the left, if anybody's in this like income range and you've seen your tax bills, this is kind of, you don't need to like acknowledge your income, but just like blink twice. This like kind of looks accurate. So this is the equivalent of a breakdown of what somebody who, let's say you're a husband and a wife or a spouse and a spouse. Let's say you guys are 2 W-2 income earners, or you guys run your own business, or it's just you and you make 600 grand a year. Well, I think all of you are based in the US, so all of you are US taxpayers. That tax bill probably looks pretty close, and you might not feel it, but this is the reality of like what it looks like on a monthly schedule. I also run a lot of ads where I talk about what is the thing Americans do? We measure in like football fields and like washing machines, and like the hole was the size of like 8 washing machines or something like that. So when I started spelling it out with the number of iPads that you're destroying on a regular basis, it's like, oh, this really clicks. I'm like driving to the store and smashing one of these things in front of my kids every single day. So an ideal scenario is transitioning over to the right. So somebody who does buy an Airbnb this year, I'll talk about the money math on how we got there. because I'm actually going to dive into a legit example from one of our clients. So this is what you're trying to optimize for. You're trying to buy a property. You're trying to take this thing called bonus depreciation. I'm going to run through it really, really quickly, pause and workshop, and once everybody's roughly on the same page, we'll move on. So this was an example of a home that we bought for Peter. Peter's a really cool client. He's done 3 deals with us, and he's on his 4th deal right now. So 3 items. Bonus depreciation. Has anybody heard of or seen one of their friends buy a vehicle through their business, take it as a write-off? And have you wondered how they did that? Can I just get a show of hands? Like, okay, in your words, can somebody just break down, like, what happened there? Let's just build off of that. Yeah, what do you understand?
It depends if we're talking about a 179 deduction, which I'm a big fan of.
Yes.
You make $400,000 a year, you buy a $100,000 car, you can't depreciate it, or you can rent the whole $100,000 off in the first year, thus saving about $20,000, $30,000 in
Net effective tax savings. Exactly that. So if you guys have seen somebody who has purchased a vehicle for their business, whether they run a business or not, a legit business or not, they're taking that thing called bonus depreciation. The IRS recognizes in this category, heavy machinery has a pretty short estimated lifespan. Like you could drive that Mercedes or whatever it was, or a heavy duty forklift if it were like legitimately for a construction company. Like, dude, those things break down. So the IRS recognizes, hey, if somebody is a US taxpayer, they're buying something in the US and they're using it for their US based business, we want to incentivize people for investing into their business in the US and also buying an asset that we like in the US. There's more nuance there. But basically in this scenario, it's a 100% write-off. Well, when you buy a property, the lifespan of that thing is obviously going to be much longer than a year. The way that the IRS uses something called a cost segregation study, which is done by a third-party company, is when you guys buy a home, which is the second item that I've got here, when you guys buy a home, you'll run it as a short-term rental, you'll get it live that same year, you will order a cost segregation study, and I'm going to show you how Peter did this in the order of operations. And then the final item is the 100-hour rule. So I think you asked, what can you do if you're not a real estate professional? There is literally a rule called the short-term rental loophole. It's not a loophole. It's a stupid name. These are literally the guidelines. These are literally the rules. So long as you materially participate in the business for 100 hours and no less than any other individual, you can take that bonus depreciation. And I will show you Peter's example of how he did that. So I apologize for these graphics. I'm just going to erase this, and then we'll dive through. So somewhat clear so far. Didn't lose anybody yet, right? We're buying properties. We're taking bonus depreciation. I'll give this example. So this home was in Shady Shores, Texas. It's a 5-bedroom, 4-bath. Peter bought this home for $949,000. He and his spouse ended up going to the property. They worked on the home for 5 days. So what did they do? They hired a general contractor to just do light cosmetic touch-ups. Hey, there's a cosmetic deficiency in the floor. Outside, there's stucco that needs to be replaced or repaired. And they basically did that for 5 days straight. Peter and his spouse logged their hours together. They were awake and actively participating in the business for like 13 hours a day. Both of their hours collectively contributed to this 100 hours of participation. They logged something like 110, 130 hours. They were there for like an extended 4 or 5 day weekend. And they logged all their hours up front. So they got the property live on Airbnb. And at the end of the year, they ordered a cost segregation study. The study came back with around $300,000 worth of bonus depreciation, which for most homes, around 30% of the total purchase price is what you're going to take as bonus depreciation. So if you guys want a really simple equation for estimating how much real estate would I need to purchase to take enough bonus depreciation to either zero out my taxable income, or based on the amount of real estate that I could buy, to what extent will that reduce my income down? Multiply your income by 3. Can everybody do that really, really quickly? So, multiply it by 3. You're basically dividing it by 0.3, or dividing it by 30%. If you buy $1 million home, typically, the typical range for bonus depreciation that you get after you order a cost segregation study and after your CPA goes through it, makes final adjustments to the dollar amount that's shown in that final little box, you get around 30% of the total purchase price. You'll strip away, and somebody was discussing this earlier, strip away the value of the land. You'll just look at the asset that's above the land. You look at the floors, you look at the walls, you look at the appliances, and this cost segregation study team will spit back a final amount based on the lifespan of everything else left in the home. What can you accelerate as depreciation in year 1? In this example of the vehicle, we accelerated 100% of that $100,000 vehicle, and that, in your example, the gentleman or your fictitious person made $400K a year. So he bought a $100,000 vehicle. He went from $400,000 down to $300,000 in total taxable income. So his net effective tax savings was maybe like 24 grand or something on 100K that he reduced his income by. So, and I'll give you guys another example. I'll pull up a pro forma. We can actually look on that.
Are you also going to touch on whether it's the 179 or this, it's a balancing act, because I could even do more damage than that, right? But then my adjusted gross income is this, and then if I'm trying to get creative, get loans and all that,
Yep.
it's never made sense to me, because if I'm giving a loan to somebody, I know that they're netting and they have more money in the bank, then they're less of a risk. But that's just not reality. That's not, they look at the adjusted gross income, unless you get creative, you go bank statements only or something, and then interest rates.
So loans are actually tax-free. So debt is tax-free. So if I went out and got loans, which this is getting into the final phase of this, which is like, what does this game look like year 2, year 5, year 10? When your home goes up a certain amount in value, so let's say you guys buy $1 million home this year, you order the cost segregation study, bonus depreciation comes back at 30%, so 300 grand. Let's say John makes, like that last example, 600 grand. Well, he's taking a $300,000 reduction in his total income this year. He just chopped his income in half. That saved him, net effective, almost like 110, 120 grand, right? Well, in year 5, let's say in 2030, that $1 million home is now worth 1.3 million. John's probably not just going to go and sell that home and like cash out and take the proceeds that way. He's probably going to do what's called a cash out refi. You were mentioning that. So the strategy here is we don't want to be in the business of buying and selling real estate nonstop. We want to be in the business of buying assets, hanging on to them, and just consistently leveraging loans against them. So you've heard the adage, rich people sell, wealthy people never sell. The name of the game is just acquiring properties, making sure that they're profitable, and then over time, instead of just selling them to trade into something else, which you could do with a 1031 exchange, not ideal. If you have a good property, you probably just want to hang on to it. I could go and get a loan for 80% of that new value, 1.3 million. I would take that $1,060,000, whatever 80% of 1.3 million is. I would pay off all the outstanding debt that I still have on that property, and I'd be left over with, let's say in this scenario, $175,000. I'm probably funding my new deals that year in 2035 with that $175,000 instead of pulling money out of my pocket, out of my bank account, and wiring for the down payment. That is the game. Kind of makes sense? What I won't do, just for the sake of time, 100% bonus depreciation. I have a super cool 8-minute YouTube video on this. I think I'm the only person who's like consolidated all this complex stuff into like one bite-sized, very simple to understand video. For context, if any of you guys know about bonus depreciation, you know about the like stair-stepping down rule. It's 80% of the amount, then 60%, then 40%. We're in that 40% year right now. It's coming back. So I have a video that highlights, and I have the links here as well, and I will share this with you guys after this. All this stuff is coming back because Trump said it will. So, good news. In 2017, Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, I think this was, I think there was even stuff earlier, but like this is so far back, I didn't find it super relevant. In 2016, I believe the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act highlighted that just like there's 100% expensing you can take with vehicles, there needs to be some other incentive for non-commercial entities like people like you and I buying residential single-family homes and still getting some incentive if we're running it as an active income business like an Airbnb, and giving incentive to taxpayers to buy those and still take some sort of bonus depreciation in the process. So 2016, that value went up to 100%. So whatever that maximum amount that a cost segregation study company indicated, which is typically around 30% of the total purchase price after all the math, you could take 100% of that in this example, the $300,000 amount. Well, what happened in late 2022, there was a reform that passed that said, we want to stair-step down this crazy aggressive incentive for people buying short-term rentals and expensing 100% of whatever that maximum amount they could, so that this would essentially be phased out. Now, Trump has mentioned multiple times that this is all just coming back to 100%, which is really, really good. For the sake of time, I won't dive super, super deep into that. So to close the loop, Peter ordered that cost segregation study $313,000 was roughly what he was able to depreciate against his total taxable income. So,
Based on what, like improvements he made on it? Did he make like $313,000?
no, so literally, has anybody ordered a cost seg study before? So can you define what happens?
Yeah, so a firm comes in, they usually get this by photos, but they examine it, they look at the amount of square footage of flooring, type of flooring, amount of concrete, your siding, and they take all the individual components of a structure. This really only works with residential, commercial is a little different. And what they do is they do depreciation based upon those individual items, which nets you, because you can do whatever it is, 80%, et cetera, immediately versus waiting 20 years to depreciate the whole thing. Right, so you can do it immediately, but you have to cost segment it out, and that's what we're requiring.
Is there a risk that the cost segregation study would attribute more value to the land than your CPA otherwise would?
Land is stripped out of the equation.
Stripped
Yep.
out,
So when I buy dirt, if I stomp on it, if I pee on it, if I do whatever to it, it didn't materially affect the quality of the dirt. So as time goes on, this dirt, its land value might go up or down, but the material quality of it didn't. So when cost segregation study companies are doing the exact assessment as you defined, they're removing the value of the land from the process.
But let's use this example. Let's say you buy a house for $4 million and your CPA says the land was worth $1. The value of the property is worth $3 million, so you're going to depreciate that without.
Around 45 to 70% of that value of the property is going to be typically what gets adjusted for accelerated depreciation for year one in this scenario.
I'm just saying, is there a risk that this cost segregation study would say, no, the land was actually worth $2.5 million because it's in San Diego, and so now I'm going to attribute a percentage of bonus depreciation off of.
Or it would be relatively less incentivized for you.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah, but that scenario is I just don't buy land and I don't buy property in San Diego. I don't buy anything in California for none of our clients. Yeah.
Ranch, right, or like we're buying acreage, for sure, that's definitely the case, but that's
So I will not do that for a property that I bought in San Diego.
Right, so let's say in this scenario, so this person over here makes 600 grand a year, they buy that $1 million home, the cost seg comes back at 300K. What does this mean? This person gets to take a negative 300K adjustment, and now their total taxable income is 300 grand. So in that scenario that I screenshotted above, that's basically what happened here for Peter. So this is the incentive. And what's cool about this is I haven't even gotten into the fun stuff yet. Peter bought this money. He actually bought it for zero money down. We helped him finance it with a seller finance deal, seller finance carryback on top of his conventional loan product. We did what's called, does anybody know Pace Morby, a Morby method? Yeah. We've done more Morbys than Pace Morby, so we renamed it. We called it the seller carryback method. He actually got more money coming out of that deal, a promissory note between he and the seller in his second closing, than he did putting into the deal. So it's quite cool. That's super advanced. If anybody wants to talk about that, we can definitely help you do that this year as well. So, closing the loop. Internal rate of return. I'm going to define this really quickly. What is the metric that you guys typically use? Cash flow, cash on cash return, internal rate of return. Does anybody have a good definition for all three of those? Let's start with the cash flow. It's all your annual income minus all your annual expenses. So if you run an Airbnb and you make $10,000 a month, 120 grand this year, and you have $110,000 in expenses, you'd obviously get $10,000 in cash flow. Does anybody know what cash on cash return is? Versus the cash flow. Yep. So cash flow in the numerator, $10,000 in this scenario, and let's say you closed on that deal all in miraculously, $80K down payment, $20,000 in closing costs. 10,000, 100,000, it's a 10% cash on cash return. How about internal rate of return? So this is the most important one. Internal rate of return takes a blend of everything. So there's cash flow, there's the total entry into the deal, and then there are also these other variables. What I typically look at, and I will show you guys an example of a pro forma. Some of you guys have love-hate relationships with pro formas. You know it. You know the pro forma, you just don't build one, right? Is that what you were basically saying? Yeah. You build it in your head, but it's like, dude, you can fill in the values on this spreadsheet. Like, you can do that. Cool. So I'll show you guys an example. Nothing crazy mind-blowing, but hopefully, was that super clearly laid out, or does anybody have a question? Let's ask them now and just get the tie down there on this is how the bonus depreciation, the tax savings works. Any questions or anybody like super off? Yeah.
I just have one question. Maybe I misunderstood Dave's earlier question, but it triggered. I mean, I thought what Dave was asking is by taking all this depreciation and bonus depreciation, you're effectively lowering your adjusted gross income. But when you go to get a loan, although that's not a taxable event, lenders are looking frequently at your taxable income, and so does it come back to bite you afterwards?
Doesn't necessarily affect your credit score. And they're not going to look at how much depreciation you took on a tax return. They're actually looking at your income. So if you're going to go apply for a loan today, like anybody in here, and you went through like a commercial lender, a conventional, like your bank, for example, what are they asking you? W-2 pay stubs, bank statements, tax returns.
But my tax, like hypothetical, right? After I do all this crazy stuff, let's say I knock my adjusted gross income down to 250. Like, and then they're gonna look at this other stuff, but they're gonna say, you make $250,000 a year. I'm like, no, I don't.
That's not what they look at though.
But they do.
So they're not,
They, for a tradition,
Colorado do.
not in Oregon, like, that's what they're evaluating. Again, I can go a bank statement only loan, interest rate's gonna be higher,
correct.
right?
Yep.
Approval rate's gonna be different, but
Yep.
just stay in the traditional loan range, they're gonna look at my ATI.
I have yet to encounter any scenario where a client applied for either a secondary home loan, a DSCR loan, and because they had been buying short-term rentals in previous years, had been disqualified because they took bonus depreciation.
I don't think
They're
it's
always
just-
providing W-2 income, they're always providing bank statements, they're always providing tax returns.
Put a lot of money down?
It depends.
No,
Some of them put,
I do agree with that. I think lenders back out depreciation in doing AGI.
yeah,
they
they,
back that out.
I will just tell you, they don't. Like nobody, no, I have never met somebody who said, I had a $0.
Off expenses,
Yeah.
that's different, operating expenses, but they do, I agree with you, they
Yeah.
back out depreciation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they just look at your debt to income ratio. but
Correct. That's
it also
DTI is gonna be-
shows that you're a good person to lend to. If
Yeah.
you have high debt, but as long as the cash flows. So they will examine the individual cash flows of each, some specific properties and some scenarios.
Yep.
But it's a,
Really good question, because obviously
Well,
you wouldn't want to do this for years and then not be able to do it at some point.
I did run into, I was like, so every year I'm like, I mean, I've always been paid by the IRS, but now every year I'm like, do I do it again this year? Like, give the money to the IRS? I'm like, nope, no, do the depreciation, get a paycheck.
Nice. Cool. Anything else there? Everybody kind of halfway there, all the way there? So why are you doing this? You're trying to basically find a way to shield down on the taxable income, right? Some sort of an offset. So this is the fun stuff. Getting into how do you actually get a cash flow positive property. Markets, I will just give you guys this. Starting there, which I didn't highlight in here, we buy a lot throughout the South and the Poconos in Pennsylvania. What we typically look for, so I started my journey in Colorado. I moved to Denver right before COVID started. I kind of tried to get into short-term rentals. I was super freaked out with everything that was happening, so I was like, I'm not doing anything right now. 2021, I started investing in Westminster, Colorado, which is just outside of Denver. Phenomenal market. As the years went on, I started getting into the Tampa, Sarasota, Florida area. The Sarasota properties have done super well. Since doing this program for clients for the last now 3 years, we've mostly been buying throughout Florida, so different parts of Florida. We really like Kissimmee and Davenport, so just outside of Orlando. You guys know Disney World. That's that place due northwest and due southwest, 2 different areas, which are really, really good. They're like 8 to 10 bedroom homes. They can host 16 to like 26 people in there, so large families or groups of families traveling. That's a really good market. Destin is great. All the coastlines, Santa Rosa Beach, Panama City Beach, we're always finding deals out there. Clients love that. Austin, Texas is really, really good. Broken Bow, Oklahoma, we find a lot of stuff that's really nice, really high cost per square foot, like brand new developments. Phenomenal area. That's like, for context, that's 3 hours north of Dallas-Fort Worth. So phenomenal market there. Branson, Missouri, throughout southern Georgia, southern Alabama, southern Louisiana, and then the Poconos in Pennsylvania. It's like 5 or 6 cities that are all right next to each other. And if you guys want a short list of this after, I can also give you that. And we can actually look, depending upon time, we can look through a deal. So number one step is, if you guys are doing this on your own, I think the easiest thing to get right is the annual expenses. Can anybody define what a yield is? Gross annual income, so like income over a 12-month period divided by purchase price. Do any of you guys underwrite deals and use this? Just quick show of hands. Yield, kind of? Okay. So in the short-term rental game, it's so much easier and simpler to not F things up versus multifamily, versus commercial, depending upon how good or not good you are. Like anybody can do this, it just takes hours to like actually get good. A typical expense ratio on, let's use the example of $1 million home, is somewhere in the range of like 12 to 15% of whatever the total purchase price is. So annually, if I have a $1 million home, I'm getting a conventional loan product right now, let's say at 7%, 7.25%, probably between like $120,000 to $150,000 per year in expenses. So for me to cash flow positive, I in my head need to, when I'm underwriting deals with AirDNA, when I'm underwriting deals with Price Labs, when I'm speaking to a local co-host and showing them my pro forma, because we definitely do show them pro formas, I ask them, hey, can you confirm with some degree of confidence, like, am I projecting the income correctly? Because I'm projecting a 17% yield or an 18% yield. Super back of napkin math, you guys could literally plug in a property on AirDNA, use the rentalizer, and it'll literally spit out, here's what we think this home will do, and here are the comps. You guys can walk through and look at the comps and say, oh, you know, if I put in like 15 grand worth of really, really basic improvements, like mural designs, or had some designer come through and like do this on the wall, or this artwork, or this, well, I guess this flooring is baked in, but anything cute, yeah, to improve the home. You can have a pretty good confidence interval that you can perform similar or slightly less than those homes. Maybe earn a little bit less, but like you're looking at this ratio. And then the golden ratio, to me, it's having at least a like 17 to 20% yield, which is very tricky to find, but it's also super doable, so long as you develop the skill and then you start looking in the right areas. So I will also go through these things really, really quickly. So annual expenses, and I am going to talk about like what do we do to improve homes very basically. Annual expenses, I will show you guys a pro forma. I think, does anybody have any questions on this? Can I fly through this, the expenses and the income stuff? AirDNA is the platform that's going to show you, yep, so both platforms get data exported from Airbnb and VRBO if the listing exists on both. They display the data in slightly different ways, and their data is incomplete. What you really want to end up doing, which I'll suggest down here, is, and I'll just skip to that right here. So we'll analyze and reference AirDNA. We will look at Price Labs. We will also look at neighboring comps, and I think this is actually the one skill that you need, and you need a lot of time doing it and an extensive feedback loop, having underwritten properties, made the projections, had a professional co-hosting team manage the property, and then give you data 12, 18, 24 months later and see how accurate you were. Either pluck somebody from one of those companies to work directly with you, or just reach out to a co-host company in that area that you're looking at doing a deal and just have them give you the final, like, hey, I think you're way under, way over. If you're way under, that's great. Then you're probably making a ton of money with your Airbnb, okay? So the simple checklist would be make your own projection, show the final projection to a co-host who specializes in that area. They're super easy to find. Facebook groups, you can do Google searches and kind of get lucky. You could also ask a local agent who will typically help you out, or you could just ask me and I could point you in the right direction as somebody who could do the final review. I also do the final review for every deal that we pair up with clients in the company. And the golden ratio, at least a 15% yield. So if I'm looking at $1 million home, a 15% yield would be $150,000 in gross income per year. Because I have a good confidence interval that my expenses are probably going to be anywhere from $120,000 to $150,000, depending upon how the deal is structured. And I can show you guys a very specific pro forma that has this really, really built out. One of my favorite things, I think I got this right for my first 2 deals. So I started investing in Westminster, Colorado. By the nature of who I was at the time and how I knew where my skill sets were and weren't, I engaged with a professional design team or a designer, an individual person, to design both of those homes. And they crushed, and they still do really, really well. I developed this halo effect of like, oh, you know, it wasn't the design. It was like my brilliance of recognizing I found these great deals, and like any condition that the home is in and anybody who's managing it, they'll probably do really, really well. So I skipped the design, which is basically doing all this stuff, improving the walls with designs or murals, buying slightly higher than average quality furniture and like actually making the thing look really freaking good in the listing photos. So I got kicked in the nuts super hard with my next few properties because I was like, damn, I really skipped like a super mission critical step. And it was fortunate at that time, I was also starting to do this for other people at scale, and I was like, never again. Do as I say, not as I did. And then the next few deals, I got significantly better at this. So if you guys are curious, I will show you an example of a pro forma going through this. Any questions on the cash flow stuff? I think this is going to close the loop here before we get into creative finance stuff. So any questions here? Markets, making sure you're cash flow positive, because in the rank order of what most people we work with want, most people who are curious, it's I want to understand the tax savings first and then get cash flow. So this is like point A, then point B. Go ahead and then I'll do you.
Sorry, quick question on the 15%
Yep.
global yield. Does that vary from your perspective based on interest rates, depreciation, and or appreciation of property?
It does. So there are many, many variables that we consider when determining, like, should we even do this deal? I have paired clients up with clearly negative cash flowing properties because they bought them significantly under fair market value for a crazy low down payment. So agnostic of what is the interest rate, what are the monthly payments. I have clients who are like, hey, I will put in $60,000 all in, like maybe $45,000 down payment, like 4.5% down, and $15,000 in closing costs, because it's a creative finance deal. There's no new lender, there's no bank, there's no loan origination fee, there's no rate buy down. I'll put in 60 to buy this $1 million home, which gives me 300 grand in bonus depreciation and $117,000 in net effective tax savings. And the trade-off with all this is, it happens to be in a market where I won't cash flow like crazy. So I know, unless I make significant improvements to the home, I'll probably negative cash flow for the next 60 months before I maybe refinance the home, take money out, maybe add like an additional bedroom or something else that's going to give me a competitive advantage to charge more. But most of the time, we look at least a 10% cash on cash return and a pretty good confidence interval that, like, even if everything went wrong, at least breaking even, people are going to be insanely happy. So really good question. The depreciation wouldn't matter on the day-to-day, like month-to-month cash flow, because that's just a one-time assessment. And what you take and shield against your total taxable income like day one or year one of you closing on the property, that won't affect the monthly or annual expenses on the home. But everything else that you mentioned will. So interest rates, that's a product of what am I going to pay every single month. But the depreciation, not so much.
And you can write off the interest.
Correct. Yep.
So the cash on cash you're aiming for is 10%, and the yield has to be around 15%. But does the yield include like the co-hosting management fees and everything else on top of that, or would that yield go down if you're having it managed?
So good question. Yield would truly be a formula of just the income as it relates to the purchase price. So yield is like litmus test number one, a true pro forma that shows accurately estimated breakdowns for fixed expenses, co-hosting fees, which are dynamic, because almost every co-host who's really good is going to take a percentage of what the gross revenue is. Gone are the days where you could find somebody for like, I'll manage your property for $1,200 a month, for $2,000 a month. It's like they're all incentive driven, and you kind of want that dynamic. It's like hiring a sales rep in your company. Where's sales rep king? Hiring a sales rep in your company being like, yeah, I want to make $6 grand a month. It's like, dude, I want somebody who's super hungry to come in and do as best as possible. So I'm going to make you commission only. Co-hosts are like that too. So the yield is just an equation of, or a formula of total income divided by purchase price. The true income minus expense formula is cash flow. And we'll see an example of that next. Everybody good there?
You've got some, there are limitations on you gotta get someone in there right away to start doing 3 to 6 days, or even potentially 3 to 6 days, 4 to 7 days after purchase. Guys, there's some kind of requirements that you have that amount of time to get some work done to qualify for this bonus property improvement? Now I'm reading, 3 to 6 days, the cost of expect up 100 hours, you said, or 12 hours between the two people. These are requirements that make you eligible for these write-offs?
Yep. So
How do you, where I live, you can't get anybody to come to your house for a week if you need something done.
well, I would imagine every market is going to be a little bit different. What you'll typically do is if somebody knows that they're going to have a close of escrow date, let's say 40 days from now or 30 days from now, they will start fielding interviews with different vendors, different contractors to start vetting them and then recognizing, hey, my close of escrow date is scheduled for May 3rd right now. on May the 4th be with you when I've closed on this home and I have the keys. My spouse and I are showing up at the property. We're going to spend a 3 to 5 day extended weekend. I want you to be my GC who comes through, walks the property with me. You might even have them come in early if you're really on top of it. Yeah. So the whole game of that is, so this specific sentiment is, the name of the game with short-term rentals is literally buying homes, doing the least amount of effort and input to get them improved with the highest return on investment, highest return on time, lowest degree of difficulty, lowest time commitment things that give you the highest return on what you've done. And also, you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone, because if you're not, like, you are obviously a real estate professional, so you don't need to participate any hours because you qualify for this regardless of what you buy and how much time you spend. But for anybody who's not already a real estate professional, there's a super easy way to just front load your 100+ hours, and then for the rest of the year, you can pretty competently or confidently know, I don't really need to aggressively log my hours because I spend so much time up front. If an IRS auditor initiated a probe with me, I would show them, here's what I did in the first 30 days. Are you telling me I didn't actively participate in my business? So super easy solve right there. And it also is just like organically convenient. Like most people who buy their short-term rental investment property, at least their first one, they're very gung-ho on like, let's fly out there and spend some time. Cool. So I'll show you guys some examples of how to improve the property. How are we doing on time?
Running out of it, as always, but, this is why we're here, so, how much time, more time do we need?
20 minutes? 15 minutes? 10 minutes?
I have 10, but.
10? Cool.
10, 15, yeah.
Creative finance? Is anybody what are you guys more interested in seeing? Do you want to see the mechanics of how you do subject to, how you do seller financing? Or do you just want to see a pro forma and go through numbers? I can show you an example of a home that has been live for a year, so we know what its performance has been, what the listing looked like. Or would you guys like to dive into how do you acquire these homes instead of 20 or 25% down with like a DSCR loan product or another conventional 20% loan product? How can you do it with like a secondary home loan product, which I would say is creative? It's 10% down. Or subject to, which is like 2.5 to 8% down. Seller finance, which could be anywhere from like 6 to 15.
We did pro forma.
Pro forma? What?
You want your eyes, like what are you looking at?
Eyes on the pro forma? All right, cool.
How would I take for you to go,
I can do it really quickly.
Also, the other thing too, guys, if you're like, this is super valuable and we want all of that, and Nick, like, we can come back, we can schedule a little bit less free time tomorrow because we have Adrian's session and he's a multifamily god. So we can have Adrian and then also, like, Nick, you could have a little bit more time tomorrow, like, because we can sit down for one session and have both of you guys. If you guys are like, actually, we want all of this.
Yeah, I kind of want to dive into all this like part.
Yeah, so
Here.
those
Yeah.
3 things you
But I
just
also don't want to take
put up
my
there,
fingers.
like they can be really complex, like subject to, so like I definitely want to get your insight.
We can do more nuance on it. Yeah, I'll just do the additional time tomorrow. I'll give you guys the framework really quickly. So I like the thesis of why each of these things work. So let's say you guys are like me. I might not have $280,000 to buy $1 million home. Like I don't have 200K to put down, and like the loan origination fee plus a rate buy down plus my other closing costs, they're gonna get up there. Like they're gonna be multiple 5 figures. What's that?
And the appraisal,
Yeah, and other items that go into under contract and then prior to like the settlement statement getting put together. So a seller who, let's give an example of somebody who has owned a home for over 20, 25 years. That home may have doubled, tripled, quadrupled in value in that period of time. They own that home, if not entirely in cash, if they've paid off all their interest and principal payments a little bit early, they own that thing almost entirely in cash. Let's also assume this seller is somebody who's like 75 years old. That person is retired and they're trying to sell the home. What are they trying to do right now? Or what are they trying to not do specifically? Yes, exactly. If I'm a seller and I'm old and I am done with life, the thing I'm trying to optimize for is not making a ton of money every year because I'm retired. I'm trying not to lose, exactly. So these people are kind of in a pigeonholed situation where if they sell that home, let's say for example, they bought a home for like 650 grand 25 years ago in 2000. Let's say that home is worth 2 million today. They would be taxed on all of those gains of, 1.35 million? At 21% plus depending upon the area that they're in, depending upon other factors, depending upon other counties, there might be other little additional taxes. So when they look and they see, I might have to lose 310 grand, whatever 20% of that value is, to sell this home, they're like, hell no, I didn't think about that when I bought this thing in 2000, when I had 2 kids. I thought I was going to pass it on to them. But now I want to sell the home. I just want to be done. Like, my kids are too young to even manage this property. So the real only scenario that they have is they've got to come up with a structure, and they'll typically speak with their CPA, speak with a tax advisor, speak with a tax strategist or a real estate attorney, and they'll kind of advise them, you really can't take that much today in terms of the gains. So how you sell this home, you can't take all the cash today because you need a structure where you're able to shield these gains with combination of like a donor authorized fund, maybe a charitable foundation, maybe a couple other scenarios. And you kind of need to run this structure for like 3, 4, 5 years before you could maybe consider taking a balloon payment on that home, getting all the rest of your proceeds, and then be able to shield against the taxable income event that you're having because you're selling the home now, you're taking less money today, but you'd capture the remainder later. That is a typical scenario where sellers would be very, very willing to do this route. So instead of me, the buyer, going to a bank and getting a loan in the amount needed to close on this home, I would work directly with the seller and say, I will give you maybe slightly above the asking price that you're looking for. And instead of me having what's called a promissory note, that loan with a bank, I want you to be my bank. I want us to draft a loan. I will give you interest. I will give you monthly payments. You'll have this little annuity where you're getting what you want. You're selling the home for the price that you want, you the seller. You get the price that you want. I get the terms that I want. And over time, you're still getting payouts, which is great for you because your lifestyle is super, super low. And this is like a win for everybody because they have no other option. So that's a super unique scenario. And very few of the creative finance deals that we end up doing are pure seller finance. Typically, they're a blend of seller financing and what we call subject to.
Then the seller gets to keep the deed of trust, so if you screw up, he still owns the land.
Not accurate. Not in every scenario. So we often deed the properties over to the buyer, and in the event that a due on sale clause is actually called, what would we do to solve that?
What's a UNC clause?
UNC? Due on sale.
Oh, a due on sale.
Due on sale. Yep.
So you're gonna balloon it? You're saying you're gonna balloon this out, like only go out? I mean, most when we do
Typically,
seller finances, they usually only go like 3 to 5 years, or they don't go too long because they really do want their money and they don't want
Yep.
someone trashing their house and then they don't pay it, now they've got a problem.
well, the seller being in first position on a true seller finance deal, like they could just foreclose.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of leverage. In this scenario, so subject to, let me define it. Subject to is when, let's say, so this is actually a real example. I bought a home a year and a half ago from somebody who bought their primary residence in Sarasota, Florida. They bought the home with an FHA loan. So they put like 3.5% down at the time, like very, very small amount. I feel like it was like 26 grand or something like that for like a $700-something thousand home. I bought it for almost nothing. I said to them, hey, if you wanted to sell this home today, so they were a military family, they were being, I don't know, called to duty, is that what it is? They were forced to move. And they were like, you know, we actually bought a second home and we're renting this one as an Airbnb, but we still have like a great loan product with amazing debt. It was an FHA loan, it was like 2.85% interest rate. So at that time, rates were like 5 something if I was gonna get a conventional loan. So what I told them was, hey, it looks like your property is off market because you're an expired listing or you're about to expire and like it looks like you're disengaging with your listing agent, your realtor who's supporting you. Why don't we just work together off market? There's no listing agent commission that you need to pay out. There's no buyer's agent because I'm just buying this on my own. So you don't need to pay an agent who's representing me. And what I'll do is instead of getting a loan product to pay off, so give you cash for this home and then you needing to turn around, pay off all your debt and walk away with almost nothing, I will give you a little bit more than what your equity position is right now in exchange for you selling this home to me on subject to creative finance terms. So it's this specifically, and I think what I did here, let me just show you these scenarios of, why somebody would do this and in what scenario. The subject to example, which we're on right now, it's typically somebody who's distressed. Not in a like, my life is fucked distress, but it's like, hey, the immediacy of like, I bought this home, I'm either underwater, or I bought this home and wanted to run it as an Airbnb. I have no clue what I'm doing. and I just feel like Airbnbs are terrible and I have no idea how this all works and I'm failing miserably, we would take that home over and say, oh dude, they're like great home, great market. It's just like running a business is actually kind of requires a little more than some people anticipate. So in this scenario, equity is very, very low. If we can work with them and say, hey, if there's a way that you can disengage with your listing agent, we could either wait, because it seems like this thing is about to like expire as a listing. We could help you, and we could bypass all this commission that you need to pay to a listing agent, to a buyer's agent. We can help. And oftentimes they fall into those other buckets of, they might be going through a divorce, might be owning both their names, one of their names, they just want to like exit very, very quickly. The seller finance, I already gave context on this. This is somebody who is a little more affluent and it's very, very high equity. So the cool thing about these is, for those of you who do like filter through and look at properties, on the MLS or your other tools, you can actually filter equity super, super low. We literally go after that and try and find people who are great fits for subject to. Seller finance, we try and find people, and this is mostly a product just also like buying homes that are a little older, and also buying from people who have a super high equity position. It's like this lady or gentleman or married couple would be perfect for seller finance. Because if they don't already know it, we might need to plant a seed today and just let them know, like, dude, if you sell this home, like, bro, can I just estimate your capital gains tax bill for you right now? Like, did you think about this? And oftentimes they're like, no, or I'm just learning about it. It's like, yeah, I can see why you haven't sold this home, because you probably need a strategy to solve for it. Most of what we do is they're middle equity positions. So the sellers maybe bought the home like 6 or 7 years ago. They don't own it all in cash, but they have more equity than like 10% down. And my company and the way I buy deals and the way clients buy deals is we want like our entries as low as possible, because that gives us the highest internal rate of return. So we can also circle back to that. I think I gave you guys the motivation for each one. Quick time for a pro forma, real quick. You guys just want to see a spreadsheet with like a bunch of numbers, right? Yes. Okay.
I mean, time is up to you guys. Like it's just a matter of like how much of each time do you want. We have a bonfire at 6 and it's 4:20, so it's up to you guys.
Bonfire at 6?
Yeah, we have a bonfire.
That's as long as we get to the bonfire, right?
Yeah, sometimes at like 5:20, so it's about an hour. So it's up to you guys. Like if you want to dive into this for a little bit longer, or
Right here.
Yeah, we're here.
Nice
Should we
kind
get
of
that?
stuff.
Yeah.
I want to see your
Just
spreadsheet.
like
Google Sheets.
Yeah.
we can continue tomorrow.
I also
Anytime.
automate
Okay.
finding all this property.
Because
Say what? I
tomorrow,
automate finding.
yeah, tomorrow we have Adrian session and then free time. So we can do
data for filtered.
So we can do Adrian session and then also loop back and go to the Oh, I'm writing this like conditions and everything, but I also have to start good. So I just you finish now. I started finishing mine. The longer we go in now, the longer we cut into just like the beach time. But we can come back to this tomorrow. So I would say like no more than 7 minutes.
I'll make it super, super short. I can teach you guys how to read this in like 5 minutes.
Tomorrow for 30 minutes to an hour if you guys want more. Just like this is why we're here. So.
Yep. So we're pairing this one up with a client this week, for example. It's interesting because I literally I recorded a video breakdown for, I think I sent this one to like 3 clients, and one guy said like, I want this. Is this big enough?
I might have you like email that to me because I don't have my glasses.
They're in the group chat.
I feel bad. I should go get my glasses, but they'll be done.
Little better here? Okay. I'll run through it conceptually as well. So this home, for example, let's start with the important stuff. We're doing $555,000 for this purchase price, okay? So everybody got in their mind $555,000. The total entry on this deal, as I quickly grab those numbers, so this is prior to factoring in any suggested improvements to the home, like our big 5 are like do a mural, do an accent wall, which is like, you guys know the AstroTurf, like green grass that's on the wall and like some cute little neon sign or something else like designed over that. Backyard improvements like a fire pit and these like massive oversized wooden chairs that are super cool. Some like string lights in the backyard, like the basic stuff. $555,000 is going to be the purchase price that we end up doing. And the total entry into this deal before we factor in anything else that is going to go into improvements on the home. You guys can see it in the corner. The total entry is actually 64 grand. This is a conventional deal. My team negotiates seller credits at large. It's like if there's one thing I can like hang my hat on, we save people a ton of money by negotiating these massive credits. I don't know how Brian on my team does it. We don't push on purchase price. We let people win on purchase price. Because what also is going to happen on these conventional deals is they're also subject to an appraisal. So if the home under appraises, like we're going down anyway, so we'll let them win on that price, and we just lean into like, hey, we really need this credit. We really need this credit. So it's a super low entry deal. It is a 10% down secondary home loan product with a 20K credit. So the normal closing costs would probably be in the range of like 29 grand. This is probably way smaller than anything you're selling in Vail, right? 555 grand. That's like a one-room shack. What specifically?
The amount of capital you're putting into a 500. This is common. Okay, that's impressive. That's like super.
Yeah. This is fun. Yeah, this is pretty good. Yeah. So the context. So the total entry. So let's also factor in what's going to come into play once we close. So I'm also going to add in these items. So I think that value before that was 60 something. What was it? 64? 64. This person, I gave them the blueprint of do exactly what I did in one of my I think this is actually my first Westminster home that I ever closed on. Do exactly what I did. I ended up putting in around $28,000 worth of furniture. I think I bought a hot tub at a later date, so that was probably like another 9, 10 grand. Nice big like 6-seater. So all in, I think what I put into that home, including the designer that I paid, was just under 40. So I budgeted for them. Have around 45 grand set aside once you close on the home to put into improving the home. So what's super crazy about this? $555,000 purchase price, 109K into the deal. So kind of, what is that, like a 14% entry? Something like, all in. I'm all in, all in. All in. Down payment, closing costs, post-close improvements, right? Or enhancements. Because they're not doing like 9-month remodels. It's just like contractors in and out in like a week. Designers in and out in like 5 days. Estimated depreciation. Again, ballparked it right in between 30 to 35% of the total purchase price. Again, you order a cost segregation study. It will be done by a third party. By the way, cost seg studies, do not ever engage with your CPA to order one for you. I guarantee you they will charge something like $1,200 to like $8,500 I've seen people do. They mark up the price crazy, crazy amount. If there's one takeaway today, just go directly to a cost segregation study company. Most of them are like $650 to maybe $2,000, depending upon the size of the home. Unless you're in Vail, it's probably like, I don't know, 3 times higher. Everything is a little more expensive out there, right? So,
Bring them in from Denver.
what's that?
Bring them in from Denver.
Exactly. Just make the hour and a half. How long is that? 2.5 hours? When did I go to Vail? Yeah, hour and a half. Because I used to live in Denver. So, $177,000 net reduction in the total taxable income. What net effective tax savings does that amount to? Well, for this client, so the one who's doing this client makes over 800 grand a year between he and his spouse. So the net effective tax savings, all of it, will fall into that one uppermost bracket, which, unless anything has changed for 2025, the uppermost bracket is 37%, right? Nothing has changed this year, right? Yep. So they'll have a net effective tax savings of 65 grand. The cash flow on this one, I actually believe if somebody really nails the design, which knowing this client, I think they will, the home that I have does 25 grand a year, but I also have a 3.25% interest rate on it. So like this example is something that's a 7% interest rate. So they'll probably perform right at or even better than where I'm at. But my cash flow is higher because I'm paying like 600 less per month in interest rate payments. Because I have a home that I think this home was like 540 when I bought it. So the internal rate of return. The reason I love this game is because I still haven't found anything that gives me a better IRR that is fairly not crazy time intensive. I can be involved, and I can also not be the like linchpin in the business that it is dependent on me like crushing everything. I can engage a co-host. I can engage designers and a contractor and literally close on this home, and within 2 weeks, like my involvement like can pretty much be done. And then I assume like a more investor role, which is I don't really do anything to materially improve the day-to-day business. But you still should, like, check in on your listing every so often, log some hours if the IRS is watching, log some hours that demonstrate you're still actively participating. Don't just rely on the 100+ hours that you front load right out of the gate. It's basically putting 100 in and getting 80 out. And we have a lot of deals where we buy stuff that's over $1 million and we do it creatively. So on those deals, for example, let me do 10 constant. So this is a super killer one. This seller is a pain in the ass. And somebody changed my numbers around here. Why is this entry so? He is such a pain in the ass that we acquiesced to his terms, but it's still a great return. Here's an example of one where your net effective tax savings plus the cash flow in the first year exceeds the total amount that you put into the deal. Down payment, closing costs, and the improvements. So this is a really cool example. I think this one is in Santa Rosa Beach. So great example, and then we can close the loop because I know everybody wants to hang 10. Do you guys like this? Okay.
Actually, they want to stay. They love it. I'm the one that's like, we're going to the beach.
Oh.
But we'll come back tomorrow.
No, we'll go to the beach.
Yeah.
All right. So there's an example of, this one's already a live short-term rental. We find tons of stuff like this in Santa Rosa Beach. Super great market. Personally, I don't like it that much. I don't like hurricanes and like acts of God giving me stress every like 3 to 6 months. Like I probably won't be that person who owns something this far down in is that the panhandle of Florida? The southern west part, Santa Rosa Beach, Panama City Beach, all this. What's that? Yeah. Super cool home. It's already live as a short-term rental. There are really, really good comps for this one. In fact, most of these homes are, in my head, I call them like cookie cutter homes. A lot of these other homes didn't really like nail the design. One or two did, and they did like $140,000, $150,000 per year. So when I scoped out what we should do to improve this home, I highlighted the comps. These are AirDNA screenshots, by the way. AirDNA and Price Labs, if you guys want to go deeper, we can actually like underwrite some deals live together. And I can show you guys the pitfalls to avoid. This home is going to have crazy low expenses. So why is the internal rate of return so high? Think about this. Internal rate of return in the numerator is your, I want the lowest entry for the, I think it's the other way. How does it, guys, I'm tired and it's hot. Why am I butchering internal rate of return? Divided by B33. Give me 1 second to get my bearings. Sorry?
You're going to pay more taxes, in a way, you're going to pay more taxes because you made a higher profit than that. Like if you're making 160% profit.
What we don't factor into this equation is also the interest pay down. And I think when you kind of look at like, well, what would your net effective tax payment be on 20 grand? Yeah. Yeah, and it's a lot.
I was going to say, it's not hard to get insurance on property in Florida anymore.
Steadily, and by the way, here are the, if you guys, I make this a little bit. Yeah. So it's high. Take a look. Crazy.
I can't see, what's it say?
10K in property taxes, and then
Yeah, but what about insurance?
8,700, yeah. Yeah.
They make you pay 3.
Sorry?
They make you pay 3 taxes. They make you pay flood, wind.
County, yeah. Yep. Well, I think actually this one is all baked into this quote.
Okay, that's fine.
Steadily, Steadily is a good broker. That's who we use for just about everything. Steadily is a platform. Angel is a lead rep there. I'd be happy to introduce you.
Is it an insurance company? For Florida?
Steadily is a broker that is nationwide, and I think I don't spend all the time pulling homeowner or short-term rental policy quotes, but I think we still use Steadily for most everything. Sorry?
The homeowner rental is not.
Correct.
policy,
Yeah.
policy.
Oh yeah, it would be half this, right? Yeah. For internal rate of return? Yep. So in the numerator, for getting this, the 108%, 90% of what dictates that IRR in the numerator is the total net effective tax savings. So that's the bonus depreciation amount on this one, which is around, again, and we've also closed on homes in this area. We have a really good cost seg study company and a relationship that we built with them. We get next day turnarounds on estimates. which they end up being pretty close. Because the CPA will typically look at that cost seg study and just do their final adjustments as well. So most cost segs will come back 24 to 22 to like 35% or whatever the total purchase price was. And then a CPA will look at it and it comes back closer to like 30 to 35%, and then some outliers slightly above that.
Bonus depreciation is really an upfront, like right away, is the advantage tax
Unless you're a real estate
deduction.
professional, then it's on the, at a lower amount.
Okay,
So-
because otherwise they depreciate, your CPA may just say, look, if you're gonna keep it for a long time, why don't you depreciate it over a certain amount of time?
Kind of.
Or you can take it all up front. If you take it all up front, I don't think you continue to get big depreciation because now it's
Yeah.
most of the depreciation's gone.
Yep.
Because
So,
it's depreciated.
yeah. So here's an example. So let's say,
So maybe you don't keep it very long.
well, so first thing is the schedule for, this is a commercial, it's not commercial real estate, it's a single family home, but it's for commercial use. It has a different cost segregation schedule. It's a 39-year schedule.
They consider commercial anyway?
Well, it's commercial use. So it's the use case of the, correct.
That's
Yep.
interesting because
Yeah.
we haven't done
I didn't go into the like, if you're doing long-term rentals and you're a non-real estate professional, it's 27 and a half years and it's just even and it's like negligible.
Right now, in Eagle County, where I live, they are still considering those residential properties and not commercial for tax purposes.
Who's they?
The county assessor's office for your taxes.
For the property
Saying it's a
taxes.
commercial property, right?
For the property taxes, is that what you're saying? Oh, okay.
If anyone were to start calling it commercial, there's a big fight going on right now about that. They want to try to make the short-term rentals.
So the property taxes will be the only thing that adjusts. Yeah, but that has nothing to do with you filing your tax returns for the IRS and taking bonus depreciation.
The state of Colorado has a problem with state tax, yeah.
State tax
Yeah.
on the income?
State income tax.
Right.
4.5%. So that 37 now is 41, 42.
Right. But that's siloed from the net effective tax savings that is associated with the bonus depreciation. Yep. Yep. So the scenario here, so let's say, I'm drawing this out for somebody who asked, is it one time? So the,
I asked it.
oh yeah, okay. So let's say, I'll just draw a stick figure here.
Depreciation up front.
Yeah, so let's say you are, I don't know how to draw this the right way. Let me think. 600K is your income and your taxable income, right? You deploy funds into your real estate transaction immediately. So this is also, here, let's use it this way. Your income is 600 grand and your net worth is 600. This will all make sense, but only in this scenario, okay? As soon as you close on, let's say you bought $1 million property and you put in $130,000. So your net worth dropped by 130 because what did you just do? You plopped in 130 out of your bank account. And everything that I'm drawing out here, this is like same day. So I'm condensing all this into like the one inflection point. It's like the day you close on the home, you're getting all these amazing benefits. If you're a W-2 employee and you want to wait until not want to wait until next year to realize these tax benefits, what you can do is you can submit what's called a W-4 adjustment. It's basically a statement that tells your employer or your payroll company for your employer to stop withholding. I've not W-2 for like almost 10 years. What do they withhold out of W-2 pay stubs right now? FICA, yeah, but the rest of that is what is it actually labeled as? Like your federal income tax and state, yeah, exactly. So you would like report or file that W-4. You'd have your CPA do it. It's a like 3-page form. You'd have them submit it to your employer.
Are any of those W-2 in here?
Sorry?
Are any of those W-2?
I don't think any of you are you? W-2, okay.
Well, intentionally.
Sure, yeah, oh yeah. All you who run a business have like, you probably pay yourself the reasonable salary from your, like, if you have a good CPA, like you're paying yourself like $5,000, like what's reasonable? Like I'm CEO of a 16-person company and the reasonable salary is like $4,000 a month. So like I pay myself $4,000 a month and all my income is K1 distributions. So let me close the loop on this really quickly and then we can go. So 600K, this is your net worth and your cash on hand, right? So you put down 120, right? Oops, 120K. Let's say you put that into the home, right? So your net worth just dropped. But what also happened? Well, you just bought an asset that, let's say that down payment amount was all principal. You just went right back up to 600, right? Everybody follows there, right? It's not like when you put a down payment into a home, you just like pissed it all away. It's like that's funding the retirement bank account of Nick, right? Okay, what else is happening? Well, it's hard to like draw this. I don't know of a way to draw this. Instead of you deploying funds, let me go back to the first photo that I had of the guy who's got two options. I know how to draw it. Jimmy, in this scenario, has two options. Jimmy is Mr. $600,000 per year man, right? If Jimmy does nothing, his tax bill is going to be, let's say, $170. And this should all be red, right? So that is, sorry for saying the P word, pissing the money away, right? So if you dislike your inefficient government, just keep supporting the IRS and don't do any real estate moving forward. If instead, let's say he bought that $1 million home and the purchase price, so $1 million purchase price, the cost tag came back at $300. Jimmy's income would be reduced to new income. It's $300. Jimmy has a net effective tax savings of 117 grand, something like that. And let's say he put in 117. Jimmy's like double dipping and winning really, really big here. Because instead of doing nothing, he funded his own real estate portfolio that also brings down his total taxable income. So instead of, in this scenario here, Jimmy is not sending anything to the IRS. He is funding his own retirement portfolio that also cash flows. Be like Jimmy. And if you guys want to do a transformation like that, where instead of doing all this and just staying stuck every year, just hit me up. We have a super cool program. It's a really fun business. It's hard. We have to look at a lot.
Tomorrow, can you talk about recapture rates?
Recapture? I honestly don't know because I haven't sold anything. But what you would do is you'd probably just end up 1031 exchanging into the next property. Like, you're going to get introduced to the game and then be married to the game, and you're probably never going to stop. Just don't buy more real estate than you should be taking on when you're starting your journey.
Tomorrow, can we talk about ways to sidestep, like Airbnb, and building up a platform?
I think
How to offset capital gains taxes? Because I know we briefly went on that.
I'll tell you exactly what I did. So I sold my business for multiple millions of dollars in 2023, and I bought a lot of real estate that year. And I didn't pay any taxes, capital gains, on the sale of the business. It was simple as that. Yep.
Are you paying it now, though, on the income that comes in? Because you've taken all your depreciation out?
No, so each of these events that happen in a discrete year, kind of like bookended, are closed. So when we sold that business, my business partner and I, we each took our distribution. I went and bought a lot of real estate. He went and bought a fleet of Teslas to Turo, which for the 100%, like, we reached the same end goal. We paid zero taxes. He also bought when Tesla was like, oh yeah, I bought my Model 3 in 2021. Damn, it's tough time to buy. Great year, but tough time to buy.
These are also on a corporate tax return because it's not on your personal tax return, right? You're buying
Like
corporate
K1, just,
properties in some kind of, yeah.
yeah, I'm not closing on them in my personal name. Correct. Yep.
There's not much left to transfer over.
Correct. So in each calendar year, so my income is bookended in the year of, let's say, 2023 and this year. So I had income on the sale of my business. I had income from running this business because I had already started this company up as we were exiting the other company and I was already removed. I was like, I love real estate. I'm just doing this. So I had income from this business. I had income, a capital gains event from the sale of the old business, a medical spa consulting company. I am not paying any additional taxes this year based on what happened in 2023 with the sale of that business. There's also some seller financing that happened after, so like I still get like an annuity, like a monthly seller finance payment. We also sold our business on.
You're holding the bank, you're holding money?
We hold a note with our buyer for the sale of the business. So he basically put down 100%. I think he did an SBA loan and like some private equity. He put 20% in, the rest was funded, the other 80% was funded from either the SBA loan or his partners. I don't know how he did that, because I was asking you, like, dude, how do SBA loans work? Like this guy bought us with an SBA loan. I didn't know you could like get private equity funding from that. So like, what happened? I technically guess I paid taxes on the like dollar amount that he pays us monthly for the seller financing, but I'm also buying real estate this year, and that's gonna offset all of that anyway. The only way you can lose in this game is by buying the wrong stuff and not having gonads during like tough periods. Like you will freak out at some point. Like every January is just like hell for me because I have clients who are like, hey, my co-host like killed it summer last year, and then December was great, but January it just like doesn't seem like they care anymore. It's like, bro, nobody travels during January. It's,
Clientele, like customers for Airbnb, is it for vacation rentals? Is it for college students? Is it for traveling nurses?
clientele for my business or the guests who stay at the Airbnbs. Dude, it honestly falls into like 6 different buckets, and I've tried to like analyze the demographic of people who actually go to these homes. It's like almost the same everywhere. The first 2 buckets are either bachelor or bachelorette parties. That's like 30% of everybody's stays. Yeah.
In those locations of property, for those poor neighbors.
Austin and then Nashville.
Nashville's huge. Austin is huge for that. We don't touch Nashville because Nashville's already had its little wave, and that's super competitive.
There's only like 1% maybe because all my high school classmates
Oh, everybody who's Austin is a transplant now.
their parents are sitting on homes and they can't afford the rising property taxes. Plus, it's in a good school district, so people are.
Now the county taxes go up as a product of that too. Yep.
Like where I grew up, it's like you have buyers, you have sellers, it's a really good. Yeah.
Yep. Austin's a great market.
It was appreciating at like 22% per year or something from like
Where at? Austin?
Austin.
I think they had a little, an aggressive correction like 12 months ago. Like if I pull up,
Yeah.
because we're also buying.
My house went down.
You said what went down?
My house.
My house?
My house. Yeah.
Oh, the one in Austin? Yeah. Yeah, like for example,
I wanted to actually.
It probably did have a correction, but this was a couple years ago.
it was. Which I like, and again, I was just saying, and there's like perfect context for this. I was saying, so how do you get wrecked doing this? I think the first thing is just buying the wrong spot in the wrong area. I don't believe in the timing and timing the market. I just laugh in the face of the people who are like, well, dude, everything's in a bubble right now. It's like, have you bought anything in the last 15 years? No.
Well, yeah, I'm the wrong guy to talk to. Makes sense.
This one doesn't have the lovely little graph that shows price over time, but as you can see, so this one, so we should have somebody who puts an offer in on this tomorrow. 869, you could just go through the historical here. Oh, this one doesn't go very far back. Let me pull up a different one. But yeah, so on the note of Austin, then we can close the loop there. Yeah, dude, it's like southeastern Florida. Austin is kind of like, I think, following the same trajectory. I think where it's at now is like, people just really want to live out there, and that's not going to change. Like, future wife and I were looking at buying stuff in Miami, and I was like showing her, like, look how much this has gone up. Like, I was even considering moving out there before I met her, like 3 years ago. And it's like, dude, I was looking at homes that were like 1.1 million, and they're like, Edgewater, sorry. Yeah, because I had a few friends that lived out there. Yeah. But we were looking at Brickell recently because that's where we ended up staying.
I was looking at Pinecrest. It's not going to be cheap, but when you guys have blue sky, you should look there.
Is Pinecrest further?
Pinecrest, where it's like south suburbs.
Is Miramar?
That's
Okay.
I would ask Luca where he wants to be.
Yeah.
We can make that decision together.